to you about the slideshow you were just looking at. So when we were thinking about putting this presentation together, we asked our students in our office to give us some ideas of how can we talk about St. Thomas and how can we talk about how we embrace our differences as one human family. So think of 18 to 22-year-olds, what do they want to think about? And they all wanted to create a snazzy video. The music was a big point of contingency. You can thank me or not for Stevie Wonder, otherwise we'll be listening to rap for the last 15 minutes. Then we asked them to give us pictures of events that they've done throughout the year. So we had some really good, wonderful, some serious, some goofy pictures. And then we incorporated views from the diversity poster contest. In the office that I work on, we have a poster contest. We've done it for 2 years. And the students submitted entries and they won. And as you can see, our students here at St. Thomas are really talented. And there was quite a different ways of expressing. The first year we asked them to tell us what we meant by celebrating diversity. And the second year we asked embracing diversity, and some of this is the things that they share with us. So let me introduce myself. My name is Patricia Conda, and I'm the Associate Dean of Students for Student Diversity and Inclusion here at St. Thomas. Just to get us started a little bit, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am and why am I the person that's telling and sharing the vision with you today. So I was born in Bogota, Colombia, South America. My family migrated to the United States to a small town in Oklahoma called Earlsboro, Oklahoma. Has anybody heard of Earlsboro, Oklahoma? Had one parent, 9 orientations. Because if you heard of it, I'll buy you drinks. So it was quite a bit different for me. It's whatever a cultural shock. Bogota, a city of now 8 million people. Earlsboro, Oklahoma, 650. Right outside of Oklahoma City, rural area. I used to walk outside my apartment in Bogota, take public transportation, get around, people, busy city. When I go to New York City, I think of Bogota. It reminds me very much of Bogota. Earlsboro, small town. The people that across the street from the road from us, because it's roads, country roads, they raised pigs and rabbits, and they had a garden, and it was very different. For the first time in my life when I moved here, I used to go to an all-girls Catholic school. Now I'm going to school with boys, which I find quite interesting. And then just the whole idea of the city to the living in the country was very different from me. But I was very happy. I was an immigrant. I'm an immigrant. I'm a very grateful immigrant in this country. I got to learn many, many, many things about our history, who we are, just the richness of a country that has welcomed me and my family with open arms. But see, Earlsboro was a little bit interesting. Earlsboro, even though it was in a small town in Oklahoma, was originally founded by a group of African Americans that came to Oklahoma during the oil boom. So it was about 32% African American in the small town. We had a rich number of Native Americans because of the history of Oklahoma, the Native people. We had quite a few European Anglo-Saxons, and now 3 Latinos in the school, my sister, my brother, and I. We were quite the novelty. So once again, that was different. What I found to be the most shocking thing is that for the first time in my life, I was a minority. See, I've always been in the majority. Spanish is my first language. I grew up speaking Spanish and French. For the first time, I was in a room where I was the one person that didn't look like everybody else, didn't act like everybody else, didn't sound like everybody else. So I started to encounter this new phenomenon for me, which finding myself to be the minority in the room. Additionally, I learned some good things about American history, but among those things, I did learn some sad things. I learned about the civil rights movement, the Trail of Tears for the Native Americans, and the continuation of the status of underrepresented people in our country. And so that sort of kind of started thinking about my identity, who I was as a Latina in this country, and he indicated me to go to college and start studying sociology. I was the first in my family to go to college, so I'm what you would call a first-generation college student, and studying about sociology and what it meant for me to be here. And then additionally went on to graduate school and got my master's degree in human relations with an emphasis in multicultural issues. Went on to get my first job at Oklahoma State University, specifically working with the Hispanic Latino community, working specifically with the students that were much like me. I wasn't that much older than them. Transitioning to go to college. one of the best jobs, except for the one that I have here at St. Thomas, and my boss is sitting right here, and I love my job at St. Thomas. Anyway, so additionally, what was different about the job is that we used to have employers come into our office, and they wanted to specifically recruit students that were bilingual. Oklahoma State was a high petroleum engineering school, so they were requiring a lot of students that could speak Spanish, so they could go to Mexico and Venezuela at the time to help work and do with whatever it is petroleum engineers do. Not really sure. But so I started working with students, and I kind of got really interested in career. So I started working with students, resumes, cover letters, what major do I pick, those kinds of things, and sort of transitioned into the world of career services. But I always had an interest on seeing the transition of those students that employers want to hire because they're diverse students, and how do they fit into the workforce, and what it is that they bring to the workforce. So 10 years ago, we moved to Minnesota. I survived the winter. I survived the polar vortex 3 years ago, so I'll probably stay for a while. I came to St. Thomas, and I was here as a career counselor, but always working with diversity, always having a double role. I was very lucky that St. Thomas supported that. I was very lucky that they let me do a sort of a dual role, but 3 years ago, I was asked to move into the role that I do today, which is work in student diversity, and so that's why I'm asked to do this presentation today. A little bit of a long story, but here I am. Now you'll say, but why this presentation and why today? So I love another story, and I am a storyteller. 3 years ago, when Dr. Sullivan, our president, came, she asked us as a community at St. Thomas to sort of embark in some self-reflection. She wanted us to see what things we were doing right and keep doing those, but then she also wanted us to look at ourselves and see where we could do better, how we can challenge ourselves and keep improving to continue to be the university that we are today, but even better. So we started strategic planning. We did surveys, we created committees. We're all invested in this. This is very much the core of who we are right now at St. Thomas. Our goals are very much aligned with the strategic plans are saying. We have 7 different themes. You can go online and Google it. If you look at it on our website, it's available for everybody to see. And one of the themes that we looked at that President Sullivan, the community at St. Thomas as a whole thought of that we could do better was in the area of diversity. So we came up with the theme, embracing each other as one human family. And one of the things that we started doing is creating an opportunity for us to share with you as the parents what it is that we're doing now, or what our vision is for the future. Additionally, your students this afternoon are doing an activity, sort of a diversity activity, so kind of get them started in the process. But why diversity and inclusion? We think that going to college, your students will graduate from St. Thomas and they'll have a diploma. Hopefully it'll be 4 to 5 years. Great. We think your students will have a resume. In the resume, they should have some internships, some leadership experiences, some added on things that they've done here at their time in St. Thomas. But what we want to pose to you and propose to you is that your student intentionally add diversity into their experience here at St. Thomas. That we see diversity as an added value to your student, and it is something that's available for you if your student intentionally works at adding that to the school, to your experience here. So what do we mean by diversity, and well, what are we talking about? We talk about diversity. So obviously, most people will think you're talking about culture, ethnicity, race, social economical status, sexual orientation, ability, and those are some of the areas that we're talking about. We're also telling you that we think diversity means different thoughts of political, academic views. Those are also diversity. But what diversity really is when you bring all that mix together and you talk about it, discuss it, appreciate it, and blend it all together, because that's what real diversity is. But in order to have that, sometimes you need to be intentional about that, what you do. So that what I'm going to do in the next 5 or 6 slides is give you some examples how, if your students you chose to encourage your student, how can they intentionally add a little bit of that diversity into their time that they're here at St. Thomas. And here's why we think that that's important. We think that diversity expands your worldliness. So how many of you went to the study abroad this morning? We had quite a few. We know about 65 to 70% of our students study abroad. It's a great opportunity. Some of your students will, I encourage it. My oldest son studied abroad in Madrid. I loved it. I got to go, so it was great. But not every student gets to go. Sometimes it's a financial decision, and that's really valid. Sometimes it's a matter that you need to stay on track to finish in the time that you want to be here at St. Thomas, so that might not be the best choice right now. But we are here to tell you that your student doesn't really need to leave St. Thomas to have a global experience. So here's about 2 or 3 little samples that we have. So if your student chooses to attend on every Friday afternoon in the International Student Services Office in the 2nd floor, they host a time that is called International Sofa Socials. So what they're doing is they're asking international students, and you know we're going to have over 400 international students in the fall from 65 different countries. They're going to be spending time talking to their students about their experiences in their country. So your student could choose to attend International Sofa Times on Friday afternoons, I think it's from 2 to 4. They'll be serving snacks from those countries, and the students will be talking about their experiences that they had, talking about their political views, their religions, their costumes, their food. Be great. We're additionally asking students that have studied abroad, so our domestic American students, to talk to students about what their experience was like when they were studying abroad. We're hoping to pair up students that, let's say a student from Spain with students and a Spanish student to come in and talk about the differences and the similarities that they had. Once again, your student doesn't have to leave campus to have that experience. They can just choose to intentionally go there on Friday afternoons. One of the most programs that I find that is sometimes not, a lot of students don't know about, and when they do, they go, oh, I wish I would have known about it. Parents usually love this program. It's being a global Tommy. So this is where we paired an international student with a domestic student, and we give an opportunity to sort of create a relationship where they learn from each other. Our international students want to practice their English. Your student might want to practice their foreign language. This is a perfect opportunity for them to pair together. International students want to come here, just like your student does when they go overseas, and they want to learn all it is about the American costumes. One of the things that the international student is going to want to do is they're going to want to have turkey and gravy and this thing called dressing. I remember my first time I had dressing, except I put chorizo and chilies in mine now. So, you know, you get to have that international student come to your home, and you get to share your experiences, your American experience with your students. Your student can now go overseas and continue that relationship with the international students if they chose to, and become more of a global citizen. Once again, it's an intentionality that goes behind there. And we have several other activities throughout the Culture T-Link and other activities an international student does that your student can take a part of. One that what we're really proud of and happens every spring is our international dinner. So the last Saturday in April, this room gets completely turned into a global community. We'll have the 65 flags from the countries of the students that came here. We'll be serving foods from other countries. Last year we had ceviche. Has anybody had ceviche? Isn't it good? Really good. Once you have it, you're like, oh, where am I going to get me some ceviche in the Twin Cities? It's hard to find. Sort of like a fish cocktail kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's really good anyway. You can have that. We'll have food. We'll have music. They'll have a fashion show. And it's you can invite members of the community can come in and buy tickets to come to that. It sells out every year. And it's an opportunity for your student, once again, to see a global diversity that we have. And they did not have to leave St. Thomas to gain that. Another reason why we think your student would need to add diversity to their experiences is because we think diversity enhances your social development. We know that we learn more from others that are different than ourselves. We know that when we put ourselves out in situations where we might feel uncomfortable or it might push us out, that at the end of it, we have more self-confidence. So another little story. I am a mother of a Tommy too. I have my son, my youngest son, is going to be a junior. He's lived 2 years in Ireland Hall and he survived. And he does not bring the laundry home, okay? Anyway, so, you know, my son, I'm from Woodbury. For those of you that don't know where Woodbury is, 17 miles east of here. He came to St. Thomas, knew a lot of people from high school, from surrounding high schools in the Twin Cities. Real comfortable. I know everybody. I've pretty much been here for the last 2 years, so he grew up here on campus. He's pretty comfortable, right? And so I'm like checking in with him. Mijo, how are you? Mijo is like the Spanish word, like my son, how are you? I'm very intrusive. I'm very much a Colombian mom. And so then he's like, oh, I'm doing fine, Mom, you know. Grades, yeah, they're good, they're good. Making A's and B's, make a C plus in Spanish. You go tell my mother that. Anyway, so then he's like, are you joining clubs? Yeah, he joined clubs, became member of the Resident Hall Association, took up rowing. My husband's from West Texas. There's no water in Texas. We're like, okay, you can do that. That's kind of different, and, you know. But then I'm asking him, are you hanging around with anybody different? Are you making any new friends? You know, he came here, knew everybody. He's pretty talkative and likable. He goes, yeah, you know. I can tell he's ignoring me. I'm like, oh, you know what, Dylan? I said, I don't want you to leave St. Thomas exactly like you came in. I don't want you to come out of here and not met somebody that's not different from yourself. And maybe I'm pushing him hard because my story, the fact that I've always been the one that has to come in and meet new people. I lived in 10 different places in the United States since I moved here. But I'm like, you need to challenge yourself, and you need to just go out of your comfort zone and really meet someone that's different and make some different friendships. I just don't think it's worth my time to, you know, that you do that. So what does he do? He ignores me. So we waited after the second semester, and one day we were talking, and he says to me, you know, Mom, I made a couple of friends. And I go, yeah, tell me about him. So he goes, yeah, my friend Archie. He's from Wisconsin. I know. You're like, Wisconsin, really? Well, he is. He comes from a small town in Wisconsin, and his parents are dairy farmers, and my son Dylan, the Latino kids from the cities, is amazed that people have to get up early in the morning to milk cows. He complains about having to get up in the morning. I'm like, okay, that's good. You met Archie. I met Archie, nice young man. And then he goes, but I'm really, this one friend that I made that's really different from me is my friend Mohammed. See, Mohammed's Saudi. And we have a population of Saudi students here at St. Thomas, quite a few Saudi students. And Dylan and Mohammed are best friends now. And he's learned more from him than he has learned from any other friend he's ever had in his whole life. He's tried foods that if I paid him money, he would have never eaten. He's had some really difficult conversations with Mohammed about things that have actually made Dylan become stronger about his own values that he had, but he's been open to have those conversations, and he's pushed himself. So my challenge to you and to your students is that they take on that, and they think about meeting others and intentionally stepping out of their comfort zones and not leave here without having had a conversation, talk to somebody else, or challenge themselves in the way that they think. It's hard for an 18-year-old to do that. It's hard. It's hard for them. It's easier for them to come here and hang out with their friends. And I'm not telling you to tell your student not to hang out with their friends. But I'm saying you have to have an intentionality to go out there and find those students that are going to be different, that are going to make you think about things that maybe you don't have to agree with them. You could probably most likely disagree, but you had the conversation. You had an opportunity to grow from those difficult conversations and gain something from that. So we have 140 student clubs here at St. Thomas. If your student wants to start a student club, they need to sign up. 10 students need to present a petition, go to student government. They get approved, they have a club. We have badminton club, sports management club. We have all kinds of different clubs. But specifically, we have some set of student clubs that talk about giving you an opportunity to learn about diversity. Some multicultural student clubs, some student clubs about students' identities, and they're available for any student to attend. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, from 11:30 to 1:30, and I'll repeat that because I get that question. Tuesdays and Thursdays, from 11:30 to 1:30, we do not have classes at the University of St. Thomas. It's what we call a convocation hour. It is an intentional time for the community to come together, specifically looked around students being able to go to clubs and meetings. So when your student says, I don't have any time, you can say, oh no, you have time. Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11:30 to 1:30, we know that there are no classes at St. Thomas. So many of the student clubs meet during that time, not all of them, but many do. I happen to know that HANA, which is a multicultural club here on campus, that's open to everyone, meets on Tuesdays. I'm not sure if they'll do it Tuesday or Thursday in the fall, but they meet there. Your student will get free lunch. Free lunch is good. And they'll get an opportunity to meet with students and talk about some topics. So last year they talked about advertising and different advertising throughout the world. But then one of the meetings, they also had a conversation about Ferguson and what was happening in the United States with the time, who was right, who was wrong. Your student is welcome to come to that. It's going to give an opportunity to have some of the conversations about those topics and gain some intentional diversity in their lives. We have clubs for Black Empowerment Student Association, QSA, Muslim Student Association, Latinos Unidos. We have several clubs. They're very open to everyone. Is it going to be scary for your student to be the one that walks into the room and looks different from everybody else? Is it going to be scary for your student and challenging for them to maybe encounter somewhere where they don't feel as comfortable? Probably. Are they going to be okay? Yeah, they are. I'm here today. They will be okay. They will be okay, but they'll have more self-confidence. They'll have a wider view of the world, and they have now gained some understanding and the diversity of thought of somebody else. We, in our office, additionally, we celebrate our some campus activities. We do Heritage Month, so we have the Hispanic Heritage Month, Native American, Black History Month. We have some community celebrations. We have Pride Week, we have Living in Color Week, and then we also do Women's History Month, Night of Noise. Lots of opportunities for your student if they intentionally so choose to engage in these activities. Once again, they'll have to be intentional about it. This one I could spend about an hour talking on, but I won't because they'll tell me to leave the room. But I think that one of the most important reasons, and is a right away added value to your education, is that diversity prepares students to work in a global society. So we know by the year 2050, the number of individuals that we now call minorities working in the workforce is going to be 55% of the population. So the world where your student works is going to look a lot different from the world that you may be working in now. We know we're going to be a global society, so we're doing business internationally and globally, but we also know that our diversity within our country is going to be different. Employers are saying that they want students that are bilingual. So if your student is bilingual, they speak Spanish, great, Chinese, German, those are really good languages. Portuguese is on the rise. Brazil's not going anywhere. They're only getting stronger. So if you're thinking about pushing your student, pick up Portuguese, my advice. Students are saying we want students that are aware of global issues, study abroad, take some classes, read in the newspaper, become aware of what's going on in the world. What's happening in Greece is affecting us here today. They want that. But then what the employers are telling us is that they want students that are not only tolerant of diversity, but that they are seeing diversity and inclusion as a skill. They want students that are culturally competent or culturally intelligent. Students that can work with individuals from diverse backgrounds. Students that understand their customers and understand their coworkers that they're working with. It's not enough that you're going to speak the foreign language, that they understand the people that speak that language. Another little story. So President Sullivan goes throughout the Twin Cities, and she meets quite often with the CEOs and the diversity officers of many of the companies that we have here. 2 years ago, she met with the diversity officer and CEO of General Mills, and she's asking the employers, what is it that we can do every day to make our students from St. Thomas come out in the job market and be ready to be competitive? We want our Tommies to be the ones that get the job. What can we do to make our students more competitive? And what she came back and she shared with a group of us at dinner one night is that the diversity officer at General Mills said, you know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a group of individuals the size of the number of the people of the country in France and the buying power to buy our products. We're trying to get the Latino community to buy our products. We want to make sure that the comadres, and comadres is the word that we use in Spanish when you have your BFF, that's what the students call it now, so you're like your best friend and you go shopping. We want to get the comadres to buy our products. We can translate the products, right? We see everywhere that everything is translated into Spanish, but we need to be able to market to them and make them want our products. We need to get students that understand the complexities of somebody else's way of thinking, that can understand and have cultural competencies to connect with those individuals. That is going to be key. That is going to be key to be successful in going forth to work. We need individuals in the healthcare services that can now talk when a family member from the Hmong community comes in, that they're understanding and respectful of the practices of those the people of the Hmong community. We need to have individuals that understand that somebody else's perspective might be different from yours, but it needs to be appreciated in the world of business. So your student can do something about that too. And I know you're gonna say, oh, she's got an answer for everything, and of course I did. I put the PowerPoint together myself, right? Your student can join like the International Business Student Association. So if they wanna do business internationally, this student club brings in individuals from the Twin Cities that do business internationally. We bring in Tommies that graduated from St. Thomas that are working internationally, and they give your student advice on how do you make yourself more marketable in the workforce? How can I get a job? How can I get experiences that make me better, ready for that? If you have a daughter that's thinking about going into the engineering, a young woman, I would say that it would be really important that she join the Society of Women Engineers. We still have a shortage of women in the sciences. It's really hard for them to make a career path and get started in the engineering. We have alumni, and we have individuals that will come in and talk to them about what it's like to do that. We have diversity in business. Diversity in business is kind of unique. They're bringing in diverse leaders, individuals from diverse backgrounds, to come and talk to your students about their leadership style and talk to your student about what it's like to work in a very diverse workforce. We also have a couple of organizations for the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers and Alpha. But once again, it's going to take intentionality from your student to come in and join these clubs and organizations. We know that your students will have, the diversity increases their knowledge base. So every student at St. Thomas will take a class, 2 classes where they'll have a human diversity component. So it'll be part of the curriculum in the classroom. Some of it will be through their maybe history class, sociology class, some of it could be through their English class, and it's part of the curriculum. It'll be part of what's being taught in the classroom. But if your student's interested in gaining more knowledge of that inside an academic setting, they can minor in American and cultural differences. That's one of our minors here at St. Thomas that offers a variety of subjects that deal with American and cultural differences, some classes that will with professors that will have a lens in some of the issues that I'm talking about today. Additionally, the American Culture and Differences Department hosts once a semester a series called Travel and Waters Discussions, and they'll pick a topic, and usually it's a topic that is, so for example, last fall, they talked about the media and the media, how was the media covering all of the racial tensions in our country? And was it instigating this? Was it helping? Just thought-provoking. But they're having these conversations where professors are navigating this civil discourse, as we call it in academia, and where you're allowed to have your point of view and so is somebody else, and maybe you're never going to agree. But once again, we had an opportunity to listen to each other, to push each other, maybe make each other once again feel uncomfortable, but learning about those opportunities. My office hosts what we call Culture Stew, and we ask a professor to come in and talk about a lecture of something that they think is important with a lens in diversity. So I know this one's gonna sound a little bit like, really? But we asked a couple of African-American professors and the students to come in and talk to us about issues with women and black hair. They were very candid about it. They talked about the history of it within the African-American community. There was a discussion as to why it was that Michelle Obama. People talk about why doesn't she go natural with her hair. There was a young woman that she wears dreadlock, and she talked about what that was significant to her in her culture. It was a very good conversations for students to talk to each other about what was going on and be able to ask some questions in a safe environment where there was no judgment. It was with the spirit of learning from each other and appreciating where you were coming from. We have a book club every year, so we read a book during January, and then we bring the author in the spring. So this next year, we're going to be reading the Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. It's a best-selling book, and the author will be coming on campus, Jeff Hobbs, in March, and that's open to you to come as a lecturer to the campus and discuss about that. The Justice and Peace Department brings speakers, and the English Department always has a common read for the second English class, and this year they're reading, their theme is Disquiet, and they're bringing the author of the book to do a poetry reading from, this is a award-winning book by Robert Mays called Hum, and he's going to be reading about his poetry. This, along with many other opportunities, are ways in which your student can enhance their diversity within the classroom. This is the last one, and this is the one that I think is the most challenging one. We think that diversity enhances your self-awareness. When you learn about others, you really learn a lot about yourself. You might be learning a lot about my core values, and are those now being challenged? And am I accepting yours because I listened to yours or not? So it's about learning deeply, deeply about ourselves. So we have two or three, we have several, but these three are the ones that I think kind of highlight opportunities for our students. So we pair up with the Women's Center, and we do a series of conversations every month called Still We Rise. And they're specifically talking about topics that concern women of color. It's open to everyone. They feed us really good food at the Women's Center, so it's a good way of eating. We have a lot of young men that attend these events. One of the conversation topics last semester was, has anybody seen the TV show Fresh Off the Boat? It's kind of funny, it's about an immigrant family that comes here from Taiwan in the 1990s, and their story is sort of a comedy on ABC. But one of our professors, Dr. Patricia, her family is immigrant, and so she had a discussion about the TV show and the things that she thought was funny and how do we portray those things in the media. And so we had about 45 students attended, and it was a really good conversation about her view of being the model minority. So how is it that Asian Americans get to be the model minority, and what does that mean for her? And how did that mean that all of the burdens that she had to come into the room thinking, people think because I'm Asian, I'm this, and that. So once again, it was a conversation. Students were asking each other, giving their own perspectives, safe place to have this ad. We have talking circles, which is in the January, and this is a retreat where students can choose to go and attend 2 days where we talk a lot about your own identity, and it's specifically for freshmen so they can talk about what is their learning, how they're seeing themselves this first semester, after their first semester here on campus. And then we do diversity dialogues. And so last semester we did diversity dialogues. We do it in the spring. We had 100 students. That's all we could hold. That's all we had tickets for. And it was probably one of the most challenging evenings I've had here at St. Thomas in a long time. We watched a documentary about the perception of students of color going to a predominantly white campus, which St. Thomas is a predominantly white campus. And what was their feelings from being that? So we watched the video. It was filmed in a university in California, and then we had a discussion in the room about that. And what happened at the end of the night was really powerful. We had a young African-American male freshman that got up in the room, and he shared with his students, and I still, when I get a chance, and we've talked about it a couple of times since then, he shared his experiences as a black man, not only on our campus, but in the United States, and what that meant for him. What his color of his skin implied that he thought, that people thought about him. He shared with some, and we had some people in the room in tears. And it was a conversation that allowed us to see his perspective and allowed us to humanize some of the things that we were seeing. I would say to you that college is the time to have these conversations. We find that only 1 out of 3 students ever engages in a conversation about race at home. The millennials are the most diverse group of students, the millennials of the Z generation, the most diverse group of students that we have. They're going to be the most educated group of students, but they're going to have to be the first generation that really needs to stop and talk about some of the issues that we have in this country today. And we're here to say that St. Thomas wants to welcome that conversation, wants you to encourage your students to have these conversations, wants to create an environment where we're going to appreciate each other's differences and respect those perspectives. We don't say that you have to agree or disagree, we just want to have the conversation. So in the back of the room right now, Peggy, Jerbeck, and Frasia are handing out a really nice brochure that we put together. It has some of the things that I talked about, but it has a lot more. What we're hoping, or what I hope when my team, when we came up with this presentation, is that you would take some time to look at this, and maybe not today, because your student will be very nervous today. They're right now finding out what classes they had. You might be nervous today after you spend all that money in the Tommy shop or talk to financial aid, I don't know. But eventually, sometimes when you get ready to have the check-in conversation, just like I did with my son, that you can say, hey, how are you doing? How is school? Are you getting involved? And then, are you adding something else to your St. Thomas education? So this is just the beginning of our school year. In the back of the brochure, there's more offices throughout our university where you could go yourselves and find out about information about events that are going on. Your student has been giving a little card today, only has about 3 or 4 events, and you could maybe share with your student eventually about those offerings that they have right here. Here are some of the other offices on campus on the back of it, and what we're hoping is that you would think that what we had to share with you today, that you think that our vision here at St. Thomas is one that would not only enhance your students' perspective of education, but at the end of the day will help us all realize that we can embrace each other as one human family. I have about a minute for questions. Does anybody have any questions? It's okay, I found that most groups haven't asked me questions one-on-one. I will be in the back. I have my business card. But what I do want to ask you to do, if you would, is you will get a survey today. By the time you get home, the survey will be in the mail. I know, in your email. If you think that there's something that I said today that you agree or disagree with me, I would open the opportunity for you to let me know about it. In the world of diversity and inclusion, it's about listening to somebody else's point of view. If you think there's something that I left out that you wish I would have said, please share that with me. Please share that with me. We really appreciate it. In the meantime, I just want to say muchísimas gracias for coming. I know you had a choice to be here or not today. I take it as an indication that you took your valuable time and beautiful afternoon outside to sit in here today, because when you read the description, you thought, you know, I might want to listen and hear somebody else's perspective. And I see that as an indication that you do want to embrace each other's and appreciate each other's differences. So muchísimas gracias. Thank you.